When the narcissist realizes they have lost, this is how their revenge begins. Everyone, welcome to another episode. A baby narcissist starts cute like a puppy, but they get messed up by parents or others. Spoiling, pampering, idolizing. All that is abuse too, because it treats the kid like an object. Fancy words aside, the cute puppy grows into an adult narcissist. This grown-up narcissist thinks they're amazing, like a god even. They're on the lookout for a partner to brainwash and make part of their fantasy world. This goes on for a couple of decades, and then boom, those decades are gone. In their later years, the narcissist puts on a reality-blocking cap. They can't see what's happening around them. They're lost in their fantasy world. They grow a long white beard, like God in paintings, and eventually they're out of the picture. That's the narcissist's life in under 2 minutes. Now when it comes to dealing with frustration, the narcissist is a whole different story. Anything that bugs them feels like a personal attack, and if they're frustrated in public, it's like a public humiliation for them. Their idea of frustration is wild too. It's not just disagreement, it's saying no, setting boundaries, or not doing exactly what they want. If you're independent or have your own opinions, it's like you're purposely hurting them. They see it as a personal attack, like you're trying to torture them. Weird, right? When a narcissist feels frustrated, it's like a blow to their ego and makes them really uneasy. They're scared of facing frustration, and this fear builds up stress and anxiety in them. As this stress piles up, the narcissist loses their usual defenses and emotional stability, almost like becoming a different version of themselves, a state often described as borderline. In simple terms, when a narcissist is stressed, anxious, or frustrated, they can act out in ways similar to someone with borderline personality. They might throw tantrums, become overly emotional, and struggle with negative feelings like anger and envy. The frustration can push the narcissist even further. In extreme cases, they might turn into a primary psychopath. This is different from how a person with borderline personality might turn into a secondary psychopath. Both narcissists and borderlines find it hard to handle frustration, and this can lead them to desperate attempts to get rid of whatever is causing them frustration. In a healthy person, frustration might lead to assertive actions, signaling discomfort and aiming to modify the situation. But for a narcissist, their aggression is more external and can become verbally or physically violent. This is known as coercive snapshot. The narcissist wants to force others to meet their expectations and merge with the image they have in their mind. It's like they want others to stop existing independently and become a part of their own mental world. If you resist or stand up for yourself, a narcissist might go to extremes, even turning violent. It's crucial to note that narcissists see frustration as something coming from within themselves and struggle to understand that it can be caused by external factors. Narcissists have a hard time understanding that people and things exist separately from them. To them, you don't really exist outside of their thoughts. They only interact with an idea of you in their mind. When a narcissist gets upset, they don't see it as coming from outside. They think it's all inside, like an internal issue. So, if you upset a narcissist, their aggressive reaction is an attempt to ease their own discomfort. They want to change you so you fit the image they have in their mind. Walking away doesn't work because narcissists only deal with their internal thoughts. They dehumanize and objectify you, turning you into just an idea in their mind. The frustration comes from the image of you inside their head, attacking them like a hidden enemy. For a narcissist, leaving isn't an option, as they carry you in their thoughts. Unless they mentally get rid of you, use violence, or force you to behave exactly how they want, the frustration will stick around. I mentioned earlier that when a narcissist faces extreme stress, they can switch to a different state, which we call a borderline self-state. In this state, they become impulsive and destructive, leading to those famous angry outbursts. These outbursts are more accurately described as borderline rage, not narcissistic rage. In the morning, when a narcissist is in a cold and calculating state, it's similar to the classic psychopath. It's premeditated, ruthless, and lacks empathy. Both the borderline and psychopathic states involve a lot of fantasy because narcissism is a defense mechanism gone wrong. Reality testing is impaired, making everything a bit fantastical, even these different self-states. The psychopathic state in a narcissist is genuinely frightening, similar to extreme cases like Chris Watts. It's a scary state that follows a more hidden phase, a link between the borderline and psychopathic states. Sometimes a person with certain behaviors might seem perfectly normal at first, but suddenly they change. They don't get angry or upset. Instead, they try to find common ground, make compromises, and show kindness. They might even act loving and be the ideal partner. However, underneath this normal exterior, there are signs of being a bit heavy, moody, and a bit mean. They might use sarcasm and bitterness. They seem determined but avoid facing any problems. They act overly polite, pretend to be civil, and show care, among other things. Despite this seemingly normal behavior, these individuals might be hiding harmful intentions. They may be secretly planning to harm you, either physically or by ruining your career. This harm could be so severe that it traumatizes you in a way that's hard to recover from. They carry out these harmful plans in a hidden or open way, making it easy to misunderstand their true intentions. The victim might think they have the upper hand, but the damage inflicted by these revenge plans eats away at them like a parasite. Now let's talk about another state called the borderline state. There are two versions of this state. One is sudden and explosive, where there's no warning before things get out of control. Narcissists are known for this, displaying intense anger or tantrums. The other version involves a gradual buildup. In this case, the narcissist tries to provoke a fight, aiming to blame you for starting it all. This is a more sneaky strategy, common among covert narcissists. To sum it up, when a narcissist is stressed or facing difficulties, they might shift to a borderline state. In the explosive version, there's no calm before the storm. It's a sudden shift. In the gradual version, the narcissist tries to provoke a fight using a sneakier strategy, typical of covert narcissists. In some situations, when someone with a big ego feels hurt or wronged, they might start planning to get back at those they believe have harmed them. These individuals can be really good at pretending everything is fine to catch you off guard. It's a bit like the conflicts between different groups, like Hamas and Israel. As part of their defense mechanism, these individuals blame others for what they do and find reasons to justify being aggressive or even violent. They see it as a way to survive in their own minds. Winning becomes super important to them, and if they fail, it can lead to really intense feelings of sadness, using substances excessively, and disconnecting from reality. These kinds of people often resort to being mean and using psychological tricks on those close to them. Being close can actually make them more aggressive because they see it as a threat. Some may even go from just being mean with words to physically hurting others, treating them more like objects than people. The really paranoid and revenge-seeking ones can be especially dangerous, going so far as to stalk and harass those they feel frustrated or angry with. When it comes to seeking revenge, there's an ancient human urge to get back at those who have done wrong. Some argue that there's nothing wrong with it. It can even be a way to prevent bad behavior. But people usually go about it in one of three ways, and the ones with big egos often get it wrong. Let me explain. The first way, which I think is a good way to look at it, is about setting things right in a fair way. It's not just about punishing the person who did wrong, it's also about helping the victim feel like the world is a safe and predictable place again. This kind of revenge is more about the victim than the person who did wrong. The goal is to make sure the wrongdoer faces consequences, the victim gets some relief, and society acknowledges what happened. This is a healthy kind of revenge. But like anything in psychology, there's a not-so-healthy version. In some cases, it becomes an obsession, like a compulsion that takes over someone's thoughts. If society doesn't step in, this revenge fantasy can turn into a personal crusade, making the victim act out and harm themselves or others. This kind of revenge is not healthy and can really mess up someone's mental health in the long run, taking a toll on their time and energy, especially mentally. It can mess up their other relationships, make them dysfunctional, and in the end, drive them to insanity. There's another kind of revenge called narcissistic revenge. For narcissists, getting back at someone is their way of boosting their own sense of importance and recovering from feeling hurt. This is especially true when they feel embarrassed and is known as the external solution. Check out my videos on dealing with narcissistic behavior. Imagine you've been wronged, faced a crime, mistreatment, or even just a disagreement. The narcissist, someone who doesn't like when others set boundaries and stay independent, sees themselves as a victim. They start blaming themselves because inside they have negative thoughts about being inadequate, gullible, stupid, unworthy, ignorant, and helpless. To silence these thoughts, they try to prove they are all-powerful, almost like a god. The narcissist says, "You're wrong. I'm like a god. I'll show you by punishing those who hurt me." This all starts with a humiliating experience. Being a victim clashes with the narcissist's idea of being all-powerful, brilliant, perfect, and invincible. By making the person they see as a perpetrator suffer, the narcissist feels important again, restoring their exaggerated sense of self. In short, when the narcissist punishes someone they see as a wrongdoer, someone who won't do what they want, won't be submissive, or has embarrassed them, they get back their distorted view of being all-powerful, becoming godlike once more. If you find yourself thinking about revenge or actually doing something revengeful, ask yourself if your hurt pride, self-importance, or narcissism is the main reason. If it is, try to separate the part where you're rightfully upset from the part where your unhealthy narcissism is taking over. Focus on the former and avoid the latter. When you're mad about something, want fairness, or need to rightfully punish someone, think about the extent of your revenge thoughts. Are you crossing a line and becoming like a narcissist or a psychopath? Is it about making things right and protecting others, or is it just about satisfying your own narcissistic, cruel desires? Surprisingly often, it's the latter case. Lastly, with this kind of revenge, the victim just wants to set things right and assert their rights. In other words, they aim to go back to how things were by decisively and confidently dealing with the person who wronged them. I just want things to go back to how they were before. I want everything to be restored to the way it used to be. It's a way of dealing with the pain caused by someone else's intentional bad actions. Things like compensation or making up for the harm are ways of getting back in a practical and fair manner. It's a kind of fair payback that is good for everyone. There are two ways people usually react to harm. One is to punish and be self-righteous, and the other is to seek fair and practical solutions to make things right. Healthy people usually go for the second option, while those who are self-centered and think highly of themselves tend to go for the first. So that's the difference between these two kinds of people. I hope I haven't come across as too aggressive, and if I have, you can respond in any way you prefer, whether it's by punishing, being self-righteous, or finding a fair and practical solution. It's up to you.